Santiago amigos, and welcome to episode 19 of The Old Man and the CV. So we're joined today by Peter Mansfield. Peter has been a CEO and MD for a number of different organisations in different verticals with many years' experience as a senior exec. Peter, welcome.
It's a pleasure to talk to you.
You've worked in different sectors, different verticals, different senior roles. Can you give our listeners a few highlights of your career?
Yeah, of course. I sort of position my career in sort of three equal chunks. I was an officer in the British Army for about 12 years, and I had a fantastic career, thoroughly enjoyed myself there. I then left and joined Britannia Building Society on a management fast-track program, which was a great grounding for somebody who had no commercial experience. I was then promoted and became managing director of their offshore bank, and doubled the size of the bank and the funds under management as my tenure as the managing director there. About 10 years ago, I then decided that banking wasn't for me, and I went into the world of technology. I was the managing director of a credit reference agency that provided data and technology into financial services. And then I've had roles as chief executive of a software company that supported financial lending. And latterly, I took my technical expertise into the world of telematics.
Interesting. So let's go back a little bit then. You said about different phases of your career. You began your career in the army, which is a pretty good, solid foundation for leadership as well as management, because you're working in often difficult circumstances. What were some of the key skills that you learned in the army that you then took into your second and third tranches of your career?
Yeah, well, the army being a fantastic organisation, it builds some real key disciplines for you. So it's the leadership, and at every level from any of the services, is second to none. The training and the emphasis that's put on it is phenomenal. The second thing is operational management, just making things happen in the most efficient way possible. And the third part is change management. A number of times, and you just have to watch the news, that you have people, especially soldiers, changing direction at a moment's notice, whether it's supporting communities with flooding, or driving fire engines, or doing humanitarian relief, or evacuating British nationals out of an African state or whatever that's in trouble, all done at the drop of a hat. And it's that ability to change role, learn what's important, and deliver against those objectives at a moment's notice.
So you've been a senior exec across a couple of different companies, SaaS, technology, telematics. And there's this, I'm going to say, perception that this ageism is affecting mid-management, popping into senior management. But you're a senior exec.
Yeah.
So we're kind of told, well, actually, some of the hiring managers are being influenced by senior management about age.
Mm-hmm.
And other people have said, yeah, but it's not just them, it's the investors behind them too. Now, you've worked with SaaS and technology, you would have had funding behind those as well, balanced, I guess, against the working with Britannia and almost not VC backing, but a shareholder open market backing. How do you then, as a senior exec, fit that into your head about this ageism in recruitment that's affecting you, when in some ways you can say, well, you should know better, you should be able to deal with it better because you've been a senior exec, you've been part of that chain?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is frustrating, and of course the perception becomes reality. They see a few grey hairs, they see we're not quite as fast across the ground or whatever it is. Doesn't mean to say your brain isn't any sharper. I go quite regularly to the gym. I will be 56 years old in a couple of weeks' time, I am faster, stronger, quicker off the mark physically than a lot of the people that are younger than I am at the gym. And that's nothing. I'm nothing special. I think there are a lot of 50 plus year olds out there who are fitter, faster, stronger than I am. And intellectually, we have had, we've had the experience, we've had the knocks and bumps and things along the way. We've got a huge number of core skills that have been absorbed, through our careers to date. There was something online that I saw that there was a young entrepreneur posted on LinkedIn that he was a multimillionaire at 24, 25 years, can't remember. And he said in the first few years, he'd started at 17, he used to hide from customers and clients because they didn't want him to see that he was a 17-year-old, because they'd think he was just he didn't have the credibility. And it's also almost then, if you say, well, if you carry that analogy through, that if he's too young to have the credibility, are we now too old that we've got too much credibility and that we're stuck in our ways, and etc.? And I don't believe that, because you think of how much the employment market has changed in the past 20, 30 years, from applying for jobs in newspapers to the interviews to psychometric testing, all the rest of it. And we've learned to adapt to that, and we're constantly adapting to AI, etc., and learning about these new skills. That just because we've got a few grey hairs and a few knocks and things along the way, doesn't mean to say that we are not as capable, if not more capable, than a person who's 10 or 15 years younger.
So there's 2 points I want to come back on that. What advice would you give to CEOs, MDs, to pass on to their hiring managers as well as the HR team about the generic 50 plus generation?
I think is see them. Don't immediately start to sift them out at CV stage because they've got a long career history, because there's a lot of valuable lessons and experience in there that will be very useful in the future. So I think absolutely see them and put them through the process and treat them as individuals the same way you would treat a female candidate against a male candidate, for example. The age has got nothing to do with it. And I would say somebody over their 50s is probably, if families and things are maturing, they haven't got quite as much responsibility on the home front, they can actually be even more committed to a business without the distractions than somebody 10, 15, 20 years younger.
So someone asked me the other day about what's it like for the HR view of the slightly older candidates and technology. And I kind of said, it's like being in a clearing in the middle of a thick forest. And HR are in there and I need to recruit a woodcutter, but the axes are in the clearing. Mm-hmm. And then to make it even more challenging, that thick forest is surrounded by a 12-foot barbed wire fence, which is AI.
Mm-hmm.
And the older person who doesn't know the technology gets frustrated. He can do the job. He's been woodcutting for years. He can clear the path. He knows the tools are in that clearing. And I said, but what HR are doing is not supplying wire cutters for them to get through the 12-foot high barbed wire fence, because they just don't understand that some people need those wire cutters.
Yes.
So put you on the spot, how do we help address that as well?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I do some speaking at Manchester Business School to people leaving the forces, and I say to them, for better or for worse, the forces are very good at, and it's the only organisation I've come across that actually trains you before you go into the job. So you've got the skills and the requirements before you go into the job. Once you leave the forces, the only person who's responsible for your career, your training, your development, etc., is yourself. And I think there is an onus on the individual to, if they, the latest technologies there, is to go and find out a bit about it and just understand the principles and things so you can have a conversation about it. I openly admit I was absolutely hopeless, in fact, to the point of I didn't want to know about it on social media. And I sat down and I spoke to people and I had conversations with people. And now I love using social media and I use it every day on LinkedIn, and I'm posting, I've done podcasts and things on there and really enjoy it. And then, with AI and things, I go away and find out, or, because I've got the time, I love cars. I think, well, now I've got the time, I'm going to take the car apart, I'm going to fix the bits myself. And I go away and find out and learn and coach and train myself to do it. So I think, yes, there's, the business has got to see, right, Peter has 95% of what we're looking for. There's never going to be the perfect candidate, and he needs a little bit of training on this. But let's put this into perspective. That bit he needs training is not a core component of his role. His role is leading and bringing all the people together to deliver the results. He just needs that bit of training. So we'll get him trained in that bit. But I think the individual has to make the effort to meet them part way so he is seen as the credible candidate going through the process.
Almost the candidate needs to say to HR, I need some wire cutters, help me.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've talked about quite a lot today, but what would be the key message succinctly that you'd like our listeners to take away from your podcast today, Peter?
To those in a similar age group as ourselves, and going back to the analogy I used earlier, but age is just a number. And it is your behaviors, your charisma, your style and everything that gives you that youth and energy. And, I've met lots of people who are considerably older than I am who have so much energy and are still working and still delivering for businesses. That it is that, the drive to learn and pick up new skills and knowledge, and not, well, we did it 25 years ago this way, it's bound to be the same. That's not the case. The world moves on and constantly moving, constantly changing. You've got to prove in examples of your ability to adapt and move with it.
Senior Exec, CEO, MD, Peter Mansfield, thank you very much indeed today for joining the podcast.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Andy.
Well, that's all we've got time for this week, I'm afraid. Next week's episode is another special episode, and listen next week to find out more. Have a good week. See you next time. Just time for the credits. For the music intro and the idents, Abigail, Ela, Molly, Wand. This is an Almost Pro production for 23 Magic, copyright 2023. See you next week, Santiago amigos.